Hello, it's Mal Pope here. Over the last 18 months or so, my band and I have practiced social distancing in the extreme. It's not 2 meters. With us, I think the closest we've got is between 15 and 20 miles. But we still be making records using the internet, sending emails, getting WAVs back and forth. Now, in the last video that I put out with Tim Hamill, Tim explained how he had got the vocal sound to sit in the track. I thought it might be interesting to look at what he did with the drums. Now, the drums were recorded in Port Talbot by drummer Ryan Aston and then sent to me to put together as a rough mix. I then sent the whole thing on to Tim, and then he worked his magic. This is how he got the drum sound for I Still Think About You.
So I'm just going to talk through the drums on I Still Think About You by Mal Pope. On the recorded kick drum, which sounds like that, which is the inside mic. There's an inside mic and an outside mic. That's the inside mic. And that's the outside mic. Ooh, nice. So, yeah, on the inside mic, I just needed a bit more bottom end, really. Just to get a bit more, because this is a kind of a disco groove thumper. So I wanted a bit more thump to it. So I used the Waves R bass, which just gives a bit more bottom end. That's with. That's without. Now, if you're listening on a laptop, you probably won't hear much difference, but it just gives that lovely round bottom end. And then another favourite of mine recently is this API plugin, which is a recreation of the API mixing desk, and I've got the kick drum going through that as well, and as you can hear, that makes a lot of difference. That's without, that's with. Now that's just adding some top to give a bit more definition and click. We're cutting at about 8K, which is where the slappiness of it is. That when we don't want Metallica on this one, so cut that, and then we're boosting a bit of 50 hertz, which is right down the bottom end, and that just gives that lovely warm bottom end. You mix it with the sub, which is the outside mic, and that's really punchy. Then, what did I do? There's a snare drum, which is the snare top mic, which sounds great. It's been tuned really low, which is really good for this song. That's exactly what we needed. So there's a little process I go through on this where I duplicate the snare. So I've got the snare top, and I've done exactly the same as a duplicate on the next track, so I can treat them both differently because I want one with a slight gate on it and one without the gate on it. So the one with the gate on it, that's with the gate, so it cuts out the bleed from the hi-hat and all the other stuff, just leaving the snare. I use this thing called drum leveler, which is great because it's got a really good punchy gate on it. And it compresses as well. It gates and compresses, but it only compresses on this threshold here. So it'll only compress what's above it. So it won't bring what's down underneath it up. So if you've got the hi-hat down there, if you put a compressor on a snare drum, it tends to bring the hi-hat right up. And this gates out the hi-hat and only compresses what's above that, which is really good. So I use that, and then this guy again, which is the API channel, and that's doing this. So we've got a little bit on the top just to sweeten that top end, a bit in the mid just to give a bit more bite and a bit more bark to it, and then down the bottom end we've got 200 hertz. That's where the tone of the drum is. That guy. So we want to bring that out because it's a really nice thumpy snare drum. And then after that, I'm taking out a little bit of that lower middle, so about 1.5K. It was just pointing out a little bit too much, so I just got rid of that. And then the duplicate of the snare hasn't got a gate on it. It's got the API channel, which is probably set pretty much to the same as the other one. Because I usually do it in case there's any phase problems. If you EQ one slightly different to the other, unless it's radically different, then you might sometimes get phase problems. And then same cut. So pretty much the two channels are the same, apart from the gate. So what's happening there is you notice the snare without the gate has got quite a lot of hi-hat. That's unavoidable. The snare with the gate sounds too gated. So if you mix them both together, you've got a better hi-hat to snare ratio. Then you add in the bottom snare, which is all that nice crispy stuff. And I've actually given the bottom end a little bit of a boost on this as well. That you can see where the tone of the drum is there. That's where I've boosted. Toms, not much on them. They were all sounding good. I put a bit of SSL channel, bit of top for clarity, so you can hear the stick hitting the drum, and then about 100 hertz for the tone of the boom of the tom. So not much on that. Hi-hats sounded like this, which sounds exactly like a microphone on a hi-hat. So I just thought it was just a little bit, maybe a bit close. So what I was doing really is just taking out the bottom end, so it takes out that clunkiness, and brighten the top end. So I'm just taking out all these troublesome clunky frequencies. And then I added this guy, which is one of my favorite plugins, which is top end. Well, it's an enhancer, but you can pick whatever. You can enhance the bass or the top or the middle or whatever you want. And the top end is really nice on these. And that's what I wanted, because these disco tracks have got really nice clear hi-hats which poke through, which I wanted. And I've even compressed it, which is not... Yeah, it was only because I think the open hi-hats were louder than the closed hi-hats, so I wanted to bring them all to the same level. So that's what I'm doing to that. Then the overheads, pretty much the same. So cut off the bottom, boost up the top. No compression, no nothing on there. Now, there are some triggered samples, and there is a kick which goes all the way through, which is a programmed kick. Now, there's parts of the drums that don't play, and that programmed kick just plays on its own. And those parts I actually put up on the grid. So they're all absolutely perfectly quantized. Now, when the drums come in, I switch over to that kick drum being triggered by the real kick drum, so it doesn't flam. So as you can see on some of these, they're slightly off. It's called Humanity. And if you put the real kick drum with the program kick drum, you can't hear the difference. So when the program kick drum plays, it sounds like that, and then when the drums come in, two, there we go. It doesn't flam at all, because this program kick drum is being triggered off it's been converted to MIDI from the real kick drum, and it keeps it super tight. And there's also a programmed kick drum, so I use the same MIDI, and I use a drum program called Superior Drummer. I love the title, Superior Drummer, which is this, and I'm using the Hansa Studio sample, which is very close and very tight, and the kick drum sample, the kick drum in this is very, very nice indeed. So it's just to keep the dynamics very, very similar, so it doesn't get louder or quieter. Sometimes you go in for a fill and the kick gets really loud. So that was just to even that out. And I'm probably using a bit of the snare as well, which has got that lovely low thump, which is pretty much the one that Ryan had. But we mix them both together just to give the quality of both sounds. So we've got the programmed and the real sounds together, and they go like this. So it sounds really tight. It doesn't sound flammy at all. There's the program kick. And then when the real drums come in, it doesn't sound any different. So that's without the program stuff. And then just augments the original sound. And then another thing I do is put all the drums through an Aux Bus, which is on a send. So these drum bus here, they're all being sent to this auxiliary channel, which I've got 3 different plugins, which are all pretty great. This is the Abbey Road Studios TG12345, which is the first solid state desk, and it's got a particularly good compressor in it. So I'm using that as the compressor. It goes on from that to this guy, which is a Noble EQ, which is supposed to be an emulation of a Pultec. Now, more often than not, I'd use a Pultec now because I've got a really good Pultec plugin, but this was the best I had at the time, and it stuck because it sounded so good, so I haven't changed it. And then after that, then is the Abbey Road Brightbox, which just adds 10 kilohertz for a bit of sparkle up the top end. And then I'll put that in as a parallel drum bus. So this is it with. And I'll mute it. So it's compressing as well as not compressing. So we're getting the straight through signal without compression, and we're getting the compressed signal, and that's pretty heavily compressed as well. So it keeps everything really, really tight, and it keeps it at the same level, which is what you want in a track like this, because it needs to be a thumpy disco song. And that's about it for the drums.
About you every now and then. I still think about you every single day.